TCS Live, hockey's premier coaching conference, is coming up June 12th to 14th at the University of Michigan, located in beautiful Ann Arbor. TCS Live is where hockey's top leaders influence the evolution of the game by sharing their experience and expertise with our global community of coaches. Often referred to as the TED Talks of hockey, TCS Live is not your typical coaching clinic. It's an experience that includes keynote presentations, on-ice demonstrations, live interviews, workshops, social receptions, exhibitors showcasing the latest tools and technologies available for coaches, and so much more. It's where passionate coaches like yourself come to learn about the latest trends in the game, connect with coaches from around the world, and most importantly, get inspired to have an even greater impact on the teams and athletes that you lead. Check out our list of current and past presenters. Go to thecoachesitelive.com and make sure you sign up to be notified when new speakers are announced and to receive event updates as we get closer to the big show. If you love coaching, I promise you're going to love attending TCS Live. And best of all, because you're tuning into the Glassnow podcast, we're going to save you $100 on the cost of your ticket. Simply enter the coupon code GLASSNOUT at checkout. Also, if you're a coach from Canada or the US, you will receive continuing education credits on behalf of Hockey Canada or USA Hockey. So make sure to let your association know, as this is part of maintaining your coach certification. Join myself and our Coach Site community at TCS Live, June 12th, 14th at the University of Michigan. It's an absolute blast. I'll see you there. What's the hockey scene look like in New Jersey from a grassroots perspective? Like if I was a parent and I wanted to sign my 7-year-old up for hockey, like what would the next 10 years or so look like as I navigate the pathway?
I mean, I think it really depends on what you want to do. Like, so as I am like the problem in this whole thing. So I'm the parent who's like, yes, you can play hockey all year long, which they really shouldn't be. I make them play other sports, but I allow one of them to play hockey all year long, which you shouldn't. You really need to do more. He is in like a tier 1 program. So I'm like buying into all of the bad stuff like you're not supposed to do. I think the problem that we have, and I'm sure you see it all over, is that there's not a ton of rec leagues that have good coaches that are available at a price that's not totally exorbitant. I mean, you know, travel teams you're into for thousands and thousands of dollars just to put the uniform on before you even have to travel or do anything. And I think that prices out a lot of people and is really hard. And so I want to see towns get back into the rec league business. One of the things that we do here, actually, you see it right there, Jersey Girls Hockey Club. So our Youth Hockey and Growth Initiative team, which is run through our marketing team, created a rec league for girls. So they did a learn to play for girls. And then after that, there was no options, right? There was like, okay, you could do another learn to play, or you could go play travel. But what if there was something in between, or you weren't ready for travel, or you needed something there? So we created a rec league, which is a really great program. We're in the second year of it now in our building. But I'd love to see more of that. Like, so kids could really kind of ease into it. They could play the 2 or 3 sports that they really need to be developing properly. But it's hard. It's hard. There's so much pressure, and you see it in soccer. You see it in lacrosse.
It's everything. Everybody says it's hockey. It's every
year round. It's like you have to specialize at 7 years old. You're never going to play in high school. You know, don't even talk about college and the NHL. Like if you don't specialize right now, and I know in my heart that's not the case. But it's really hard as a parent to push back on that. It's really hard.
You know what? I got to say, I think it's great that you say that, because I think so often the narrative is like, it's black and white. It's, you know, year round is wrong. But I think it's important to acknowledge that when you're a parent, you're just worried about doing the best thing for your kids. And it's the most powerful drug in the world is, you know, trying to just keep up and do the best you can for your kids. And so I think it's important to acknowledge that. I will also note, and the name is escaping me, there's when you talk about the recreation part, there's a group in Toronto and they're just crushing it right now. I'll try to see if it comes to me. But what they did, super smart, they went out, they recognized the same issue, because in Toronto it's all about, you know, the GTHL and elite. And so they went out to some parents and said, what are the barriers keeping you from keeping your kids in hockey? And they're like, look, we don't want to get up early in the morning. And they're like, perfect. We'll have no practices early in the morning. And they said it would be so convenient if we knew our schedule for the whole year. Like games were just on the same day. They're like, that's what every other sport does when we sign our kids up for soccer, except they're like, perfect, we can do that. And they're like, anything else? They're like, we don't want to travel that far. They're like, well, what if we put all the teams in one rink? And they're like, perfect. And they literally just went through and they just tailored it. And
can you send it to me? Because I'm always looking for like unique ideas that people are doing that maybe we could.
I will. Yeah, I will do that. And I will also, the other thing they did, obvious in hindsight, they went and talked to the other sports providers and said, hey, soccer, when are you doing what's your 7-year-old schedule? They said, okay, we'll work around that so kids can genuinely do other things. And that's
a nice way to do it. When I was coaching at the Pingree School here in New Jersey, we would talk to the travel teams, but the hockey travel teams, so that I would have practice early so that the girls could make their travel team. So they'd go a full day of school, they'd practice for me, they'd practice for their travel team, and then they would go home and have to do homework for 4 hours.
Oh my God. So hold on. So the girls you coached there, that wasn't their full-time team?
No.
Or was it also, did you play game? You played at games though, I gather.
Yeah, no, we're a full team. We practiced 5 days a week and we played games 2 days a week. And then they would go and then they would have their travel practice late at night. And we thought we were being really great talking to the travel coaches so that they didn't have to choose between high school and travel, because a lot of the travel coaches will bench them for not being there. And then I, as a high school coach, would feel like I would have to bench them for not being at my practices. These girls would be sitting down to homework at 10 o'clock at night.
Well, you guys either really love hockey out there on the East Coast, or you took a page from like the old school Soviet training regime. Jesus, that is so intense. The other thing I think about that, so I've told you this before, like my appreciation for the geography in your part of the world is very limited, but I was Googling around last night because I'm like, there's the school, there's the, and I'm like, it's the name of the school. If I want to make sure I got the pronunciation correct.
Eastside. Wait, Eastside or Pingree?
Pingree.
Pingree.
Okay. Yeah. So the Pingree school is out of the way. So as you say that, my mind goes to, I'm assuming that means there's no traffic in the state of New Jersey just to commute. Like I can't even imagine being the parents.
It's a lot of driving. A lot of driving. And then, for like the club hockey teams, like we'll drive up to Boston or outside of Boston for games. Like we drove to Connecticut for one game once last year. I was like, this is crazy. Why am I doing this? And yet I'm still doing it. So like, I feel parents' pain. Like I don't have a good answer for it.
Well, okay. I'm pretty sure the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again. So
yeah. And
there you go.
Signed up for it again. So yeah, it's great.
I want to get into, the work that the Devils do in the community, but I thought before we dive into that, maybe you could tell us about your memory of the Devils winning the Stanley Cup in 1995.
Yeah. So my mom was governor at the time. And back then they did not have campaign finance laws. So the governor had a box at every sporting event. And so we would go almost every game to the Devils. My mom was a huge fan. My dad grew up in New York City, but became a fan. And so my brother and I just kind of grew up in that arena, in the Meadowlands. And the first year she was elected, they won. I think that's correct, the Stanley Cup. And so we had been at every game. And when they won, we got to go down on the ice, which was unbelievable. And
oh my God.
She picked up the Stanley Cup, which is heavy, by the way, like heavier than you think, and especially if you're in heels on ice, even after a game.
Do you have a picture of this?
Somewhere. Like someone's got one. Yeah. And so I got to see the Stanley Cup pretty like up close and personal. That was back when, like Dano was playing, and now I get to work with him here, which is so much fun. I do remember him. He had a bridge, and he would just like flick his teeth out at you sometimes. Like, so I remember that when I think I was about 15 at the time. So
when did you start playing hockey? Because I understand that wasn't your
It
first
was
steps on the
not.
ice. Yeah.
Yeah. So I figure skated for
Yeah.
the first 12 years of my life. And my father always told me that I should really be playing hockey. And there wasn't a ton of girls hockey. There was girls hockey, but not a ton of it. I learned to play at the Essex Hunt Club, which is an outdoor rink here in New Jersey. It's actually all my kids learned to skate there. I still play on a women's team there. It's lovely. Playing hockey outside is so much fun. Yeah, so I learned to figure skate there. And the last time I put figure skates on, I had gone up to Lake Placid for a competition, I guess they call it. I don't even remember what they call it now. But they made me dress up like a Smurf. And I had to sit there for 7
I'd
hours
be out
and
at Smurf.
go out. I have a picture of that and a couple pictures of it. And I had to go out and do my 2-minute routine and then sit for another 7 hours. And that was it. I was like, we're done. I'm hanging up the figure skates and tried hockey and never looked back.
Why did your dad?
A picture right here of it. Hold on.
Do you really? Oh my
I do,
God.
yes, because I was putting together the speech.
Oh my God. That is all kinds of special. I hope that goes back on the fridge at home.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah. Why do you think your dad wanted you to play hockey?
I was a total outdoorsy kid. Like I rode horses. I played a lot of sports. I loved playing sports. Like he knew that. He knew my personality would work really well, I think, with the game. I was always like big and strong, so that was helpful on the ice. And he loved the game. So he played at Harvard and at Yale, and he loved playing hockey. He still played at Essex, so we would play together. Yeah, so we played together for years on the men's team, and so it was a lot of fun. It was just a big family event for us.
That's so cool. And when, so you're 12 years old and you make that transition to playing, I could see that, I mean, obviously hockey's become a huge part of your life, but I could see with that, at 12 years old, having a stick in your hand for the first time, it would be just as easy to maybe say, hey, this is uncomfortable. I'm behind. I'm not going to stick with it. What do you think happened in those maybe first few ice times or that first season that helped you fall in love with it and pursue it? Because, we'll get into it, but obviously you end up going to play NCAA hockey.
Yeah. So definitely my coaches. We had 2 dad coaches. They were awesome. Both their daughters played on the team, which I also have a picture of if you want to see somewhere. But
Turn into a slideshow.
Yeah, I know. They just loved the game and they loved being outside and having us, they just got a kick, I think, out of coaching all these girls who had no idea what we were doing. And it was just a lot of fun. And so keeping fun in the game is something I try to do as a coach now. It's a lesson that I learned having a coach who didn't have a lot of fun in college. A lesson that I had to take from that, keeping kids in the game as long as we can up until our age, up until my age, it's really important to have fun because if you're not having fun, you're not going to keep doing it. And I played a lot of stick sports. So I played lacrosse and field hockey. And so it wasn't like a big leap for me to get onto the ice with a stick. And I loved it. Like I loved everything about it. I still do.
When did maybe the switch go on where you said, hey, this is something I want to pursue heavily? Because I imagine to play at the NCAA level particularly, and I'm this is an assumption, but I would imagine that there probably wasn't a lot of girls in your area that you could look to and say, well, she did it. So
right. Yeah,
I can assume that I'm going to play college hockey too.
There wasn't. I didn't really think about playing college hockey till later in high school. So I went away to boarding school my sophomore year to Deerfield Academy in Western Mass. And we had a rink there and we had so much access to ice. Like we could be on the ice all the time. I also played lacrosse there and then also played lacrosse in college. So my college choice was really based on somewhere I could go, and Wesleyan's D3. So I could play 2 sports. I really wanted to play 2 sports. Like back when you didn't have to specialize. Back to that again. So,
no kidding.
Yeah.
Well, this is a total aside. You mentioned lacrosse. So Wesleyan. Am I saying that right?
Wesleyan.
Wesleyan. That's where Bill Belichick went to school.
Yes.
Huge lacrosse guy. I know. And his daughter coaches, where she coaches lacrosse collegiately.
She coaches lacrosse. Yeah.
Might be Northeastern, maybe, or Northwest.
Yeah. That sounds right.
When your 4 years on campus there, any Bill Belichick related stories, tales that
I didn't even know that he went there. And then I went back for a reunion like 5 years after I graduated, and our entire athletic center was renamed after him.
Oh, like, wow. No way.
I had no idea. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So when you're going to school there, you get a degree in political science. Given, what your mom did for a living, where did sort of coaching rank on the potential career choices?
I never thought about it. I, played in college, and like I said, I had a difficult coach. It was not the best experience. Like, I loved playing on the team. My teammates were amazing. We did well, but it was hard. It was really hard. And so after college, I feel like I kind of took a break a bit, got into politics, which is sort of all consuming. When you're working on campaigns, you work 20 hours, you go to the bar, and then you sleep for like an hour, and then you go back and do it again. It's not like the most healthy thing. And so I, was running around between DC and working on campaigns, and wasn't skating as much. It was after I had my kids that we started to get back into it. And then when they started to play, I went back into coaching to coach them. So that's how I started, was coaching boys at the mite level, and coached them all the way up to peewees, stopped when they were bantams, when they started checking. And then at that point realized it was something I really loved to do. So started coaching girls. I coached as assistant coach at Pingree, and then at the Colonials, and then took over the head coaching job at Pingree, which is the K through 12 independent day school here in New Jersey, for 8 years, and loved it. Like, it was just such a great experience. The girls were awesome. I had a lot of learning I had to do as a coach. Because of my college experience, I kind of felt like instilling fear in people was the way to get them to be loyal and like run through a brick wall for you and all that stuff. And I realized pretty quickly in my first season that was not working. It's something that I then decided, okay, well, I can learn to be a better coach. And actually I started with USA Hockey. I got my first level. I started being a coach developer with them and really learning beyond the X's and O's, what it's like to create culture and how you create culture on a team, and what you like, how you create it on purpose and how you create it by accident, and what you want, how you set your goals at the beginning of the year with your team to create a place where they feel like they can fail, they can take chances, they trust you. And it's just such a better atmosphere. And it brings back the joy, like the fun in playing hockey, right? If you can trust your teammates and your coach. So it's something that now, looking back decades, I've totally changed as a coach.
Well, I'll say this. I'm really glad that you touch on the fact that I think this happens a lot in coaching. And I think that in our game today, that we're seeing a cultural shift for the good. We're seeing some behaviors change, and that's good. I think we also have to be mindful, and I can relate to this because, the first coach I coached with in junior hockey, I saw him throw an exercise bike at a kid in the dressing room. And so same thing, I became a head coach, and I was like, this is how you do it. And it took me some time to work through that. And I think sometimes we have to give each other some grace, that sometimes we just need the space to evolve and not be slapped on the wrist too hard. But was there anything in particular, like was it a transition or realization over time, or was there maybe a bit of a light bulb moment where you're like,
no, there was a light bulb moment.
I gotta look in the mirror here and change.
There was a light bulb moment. We were losing a game we should have been winning, and we went into I don't remember if it was first or second intermission, but they were doing the ice. And so I walked into the locker room expecting like my players to be like crying and thinking about what they could do better.
They needed to care more. Yeah.
Yeah. And they were all on their phones, like looking at social media, and I swear I never understood like the desire to throw something, but I did then. And I did not throw anything, I will say. I
Okay,
did not,
that's good.
but I thought about it. And I definitely said a few things that were probably not so nice, and realized pretty quickly that like there had to be a better way, right? There had to be a better way to get these players to care about what was happening on the ice. And me screaming at them was not the way to do that. It just didn't work, right? Like it made them unhappy. It made me unhappy. Like I walked out of there, I didn't feel like satisfied. Like I think there is a time and a place for yelling. Like it happens, like people, yeah, but like I needed to change. And, I will credit USA Hockey with helping me with that. I think the way their coach developer training, I'm now a level 5 coach, and still am a coach developer. So all year long, I do all the online trainings for them. And so like, I will say they have really moved their curriculum away from just X's and O's, which anybody can Google, you like go on YouTube and learn how to teach shooting, right? But it takes some finesse to build that culture. And I've definitely, over the last 5 years I've been with USA Hockey doing the coach developer work, seen a shift in what coaches are asking. When we first started the work, they were all like, oh, this is kind of BS. Why am I doing this? But now there's a lot more intentional questions of like, how do I build culture? How do I work with the parents? Like, how do I work with the parents from the beginning to become allies with them, right? Rather than having this coach-parent relationship. Because like, as the coach, like, you aren't going to win that. Your kids go home with their parents.
Yeah.
Like,
they're the owners, right? In minor hockey almost, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's definitely been a journey for me, but one that I've really enjoyed. And so now being back with the Devils, I was able the last 2 years to coach with Eastside High School, like we've talked about. So that is a high school girls program. It's been around since I think 2014. It's been a varsity program for 2 years. It is also so much fun, right? Just having a group of girls on the ice. And it's different from Pingree because these girls haven't had the same kind of access to hockey early on. So we're actually teaching a lot of them to skate and the basics of the game. So there is a lot of X's and O's that go into this. But it's fun. It gets me back on the ice. And it's definitely a different perspective of hockey than I've had in the past.
So one comment, 2 questions. Comment is, based on everything you've said for the last 10 minutes, you should really teach a course in time management because there's clearly like 30 hours in your day compared to the rest of us. 2, I would be curious, can you just clarify when you say varsity, just for folks in Canada and other parts, what does that mean? Like, where does that separate them? And then the second bit would, if we asked your players at Eastside High how Coach Kate keeps it fun, what would they say?
Okay. So it was kind of a rec league team. And then to be a part of the NJSIA, which is the state governing athletic body.
So that would be like volleyball, like all sports.
All sports.
Okay.
They now recognize girls hockey. And we have 3 leagues within girls hockey in New Jersey. There's 3 levels. And so Eastside is in the 3rd league, which is actually named after me, oddly. So that just happened last year.
It's a compliment.
Yeah, it was really nice.
Yeah.
It's so nice. It's so nice. It still makes me feel weird to say it. But so we're in that league, and as a varsity team, so it's recognized by the state.
Got it. And how do you keep it fun?
So we do a lot of games. So we do a lot of small area games. We do a lot of competition. The girls, I have found at both Pingree and at Eastside, like they're there because they want to compete, right? And maybe we're not winning all the time at Eastside, but that doesn't mean that they don't want to compete and get better and push each other. And so games are always a fun way to do it. And then we do a lot of stuff off ice as well. Like, so we'll have dinners and pasta dinners. And, at the beginning of the year, we set our goals. And so they carry that with them in their bags, like all season long. So there's lots of little things that we do to try to foster that team culture and environment and keep it fun.
So I'm, as the old man in the room, I've learned that writing down your goals is remarkably powerful. I wish somebody had taught me that when I was in high school.
Right.
What is goal setting? What does that process look like when you introduce it to your players?
So we have a team meeting prior to the start of the season on ice where we talk about the head coach and I talk about our goals for the team for the season. We define what we think culture looks like. We talk with the girls about what they want their culture of this team to be. So we start at a much higher level than the individual. And then from there, once we've defined our team goals, and our team norms and what we are going to accept and what we aren't going to accept or do, bless you, then we go down to the individual and we try to keep them realistic. So for like our goalies, it's not having a shutout every game. That's not going to happen. For our top scorer, it's not having 4 goals a game. Not going to happen, right? It's like the little things that are important. So, and their goals are both on and off the ice. So it could be being a good teammate, helping people with bags, opening doors, things like that are also part of it, as well as the on ice goals. So, and that would be, being better about making sure no one's standing in front of our goalie. Like there are lots of different things that we put in there. It's not just like plus minuses or goals against, things like that.
How much of I don't know what the right definition would be, but like, the non on ice stuff, you mentioned holding doors open for folks and things like that. How much of that is volunteered by the players themselves? And how much of that is defined by the coaches?
So it's mostly volunteered by the players, especially now that we've done this for a couple of years. So we have return players who know what to expect and they can step in and kind of lead the younger ones, which is really helpful because it's better than coming from us, right? You can try to define culture and lay it out there, but if it's not coming from the athletes, that's a harder thing. So now we have some older upperclassmen who can lean in and say, like, this is what I want to do and start the conversation. So really get those freshmen thinking about it a little bit differently.
Got it. And, just for context sake, and obviously you and I have chatted, but, you talk about maybe the difference between the two female programs that you've coached at the youth level. Can you maybe just go in a little bit deeper into sort of maybe the background and the environment that some of the players you coach today have come up in?
Right. So it's pretty different so Eastside High School is in the Ironbound section of Newark, New Jersey. It is a town-run rink. And so like, it's just, there's not the same access to high level facilities that I had at Pingree. It's just a different situation in Newark versus Pingree, even though it's, 30 minutes away on one road in New Jersey, right? It's very different. And so a lot of the girls who play for Eastside, like I said before, didn't have access to ice early on. Whereas at Pingree, we have a bunch of players who've been playing since they were 2 years old. Their parents are there all the time, shuttling them between the rinks and then to their travel teams afterward. Yeah. So they're skating a lot more than what's happening here. Last year we had 1 travel player, if that tells you anything, on our team. And this year we had no travel players. So I think access to ice and to quality coaching and to the younger years of playing is really important in development, obviously. And there's not as much access here in Newark. So we are really teaching a lot of the girls how to skate. So I run a clinic all summer in the evenings, once a week, to teach the incoming freshmen how to skate.
No way.
So yeah, so that.
And when you say how to skate, like define, like, is this their,
like on the circle, this is a crossover.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we want to try and get ahead of that, where we're not teaching girls to skate during the season, but that they have some basis of understanding of what it is to play the game. And, aside from the teaching the very basics, like, there is something to be said for teaching girls the basics of the game from kind of a clean blank slate, right? So we talk a lot about it in the four rules of hockey. So it's like your offense with the puck, offense away from the puck, defense near the puck, defense away from the puck. And that is actually, once you talk about it a bunch with high school girls, I found it's a really easy concept to understand. And it gets everybody into that mindset of, okay, like if my forward is going down the ice, like I still have to do something. Like it's not just them going to do it, like, and me as a defender staying back on the blue line. Like that's just not the way the game's played anymore. Like it's not a modern game, right? So it is helpful to not have to break some of the badly taught things that people have been taught at a younger age, you know?
But you know what's interesting is that, when you're getting these players, I think statistically, especially in female sports, you're getting them at the point where traditionally there's a drop off in teenagers, especially, that have played not just hockey, but any sport since they were young. What do you think draws a lot of your players to the game in the first place? Especially, I'm just thinking teenagers feel so much angst about not knowing what to do. Like I just think it's really interesting that they're drawn to go play at that stage.
So one of the grants that we did through the Devils Youth Foundation, and the Devils have been a longtime supporter of a group called Hockey in New Jersey, and it's based in Newark, but it's now in 6 different towns. They run Learn to Skate, Learn to Play for free, and they're in the Ironbound rink, and they were really instrumental in starting this high school team at Eastside. So we did a 3-year grant with them to support their girls' development because we want to start developing girls at a younger age. So once they get to high school, I'm not teaching them how to skate. So actually this spring, we went to 3 or 4 middle schools during lunch and sat outside in the playground and distributed flyers to get girls to come play. So it's really grassroots. We also have the high school girls record a video, and then we're trying to get them into schools in September, like the actual girls to go and encourage girls. Yeah, so we do it in 8th grade. So we start in 8th grade, and then they'll also go to high school, to the other high schools around Newark to try to get more girls to play. So a lot of what we run into here is it's actually any of the high school girls in Newark at all 5 of the big high schools could come and play, but we run into a lot of transportation problems. So like the rink, there's a bus route, might not be the safest. Like people don't feel comfortable. Like a lot of the kids walk, and they walk over from Eastside High School to the rink. Also not the safest thing in the world, but they do. So we run into a transportation problem, and that's one of the biggest hindrances for other girls to come to our program. So we're working on that, trying to get some buses to take girls from other high schools over to the Ironbound to play.
I read a lot of books, a lot about sports. The most impactful book I've read in the last 12 months was The Miracle of St. Anthony. And it's on Bob Hurley, St. Anthony. It's in Newark. And I read that book, and I mean, you just can't help but be appreciative of everything you have, especially just the opportunity to play hockey as a young person. Are we talking like that same sort of neighborhood of Newark? Because that's not what I imagine where hockey.
I don't know the book. Was it in the Ironbound?
It's in Newark. I believe it's very close to where the Prudential Center is.
Yeah, I mean the Ironbound's it's less than a mile from here.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, so probably. So look, like there's a difference, right? Our players go through a lot to just get on the ice.
Yeah, so I gather that.
There was a shooting at the rink a couple years ago, so we go through metal detectors to get there. Last year, for the last 2 or 3 years, there have been no locker rooms because there was asbestos in it, and they never fixed it. So everybody was just sort of changing outside. There's a lot of, like I said, there's transportation issues of girls getting to a rink, walking home in the dark in the middle of winter. Like there's a lot that they go through just to get on the ice. And I'm in awe of our players and have such an appreciation for what they do just to get there. And then, I mean, add on all the layers of being a high schooler in an age of, this, which is just nightmarish. Like I am so glad I didn't grow up with a cell phone. So like just the things that they're dealing with are so hard. What we try to do is give them that hour at the rink where they can forget about all of that and they can just play hockey and have a blast and enjoy each other and get better at the game.
And I think that's where I was coming from. And, granted, I've had a bit of a preview into your talk that you're going to give at TCS Live this year. But I mean, I read the first draft and like literally started crying because I had to read it a few times. I'm like, it was a lot. And I think that, the main reason I invited you to speak was because I think we've seen a shift in our game, and we hear this all the time from our minor hockey partners, is that it's getting harder and harder to recruit coaches. And most people are drawn to coaching hockey because they want to coach a team that's going to win championships, or they don't want to have to walk the gauntlet of parents after the game on a team that's maybe not as competitive. So it's just easier. And it's harder and harder to find people that step up and say, I just want to coach a group of kids, give them a great experience. And I think what you're doing is really commendable. And obviously it sounds like there's a group of coaches and people that are all a part of this. Yeah. Two questions. One, the Devils program is funding a part of this program in terms of getting these kids on the ice. Okay.
Yeah.
And would it be fair to say that there's not, somewhere in the Devils office or part of the Devils Youth Foundation where there's like a KPI that says we're doing all of this to develop elite female players for college hockey and beyond? Okay.
No, although that would be amazing. So,
yeah. What is the goal here? Because I mean, that money could be allocated in a lot of different ways. It's obvious, I think, for anybody that's had a positive experience with hockey, the impact that can have long term. But why is this important for these young women?
So, I mean, I think there's a bunch of different reasons. And, when we created this grant, Hockey in New Jersey hired a director of girls hockey who actually I drafted for the Riveters.
No.
Yes, Tara Hoffman. So such a small hockey is such a small world.
No
and she's doing a fantastic job. And her goal is definitely to develop players to play in college. Right. And so that she takes them from mites, from really little and goes all the way up to high school. And then we take them at high school. So their goal is to develop players who could actually play in college. It's just a 2-year-old. The program's 2 years old.
So I thought about you the other day. I was talking with a hockey parent, a dad, and he has his own business, and we were just chatting casually. And, I said, I used to coach at UBC. He went to UBC. And I said, well, what did you take in school? And he's like, political science. I'm like, oh, that's odd. Like that has nothing to do with what you do now. And he goes, you're right. He goes, however, he's like, the one thing that a degree in political science teaches you how to do is how to communicate really effectively through writing.
Yeah.
It teaches you agency and how to advocate for yourself. And I sort of had this seed planted, and then I, as I, read up on you and your background, I couldn't help but think like you could have so many parallels between perhaps working on a campaign, trying to persuade people in the same way that a hockey coach, even, professional hockey coaches, and they're trying to persuade people and nudge them towards certain behaviors and actions. What sort of, how has your background in political science, working on campaigns, maybe influenced who you are as a coach?
So I think that's a really important point, and it's one that I tell anyone who reaches out to me and asks like what they should do in college, and like learn how to express yourself, learn how to write, learn how to create an argument, learn how to express your opinions in a manner that other people can digest and understand, and that will serve you in anything that you do. It doesn't have to be hockey. It doesn't have to be anything. And I think sometimes you lose that a little bit, especially with like ChatGPT and everything that's going on right now. But having that skill, and that's definitely something I took from Wesleyan, was the ability to write, the ability to get things onto paper in a cohesive manner that other people could understand and that could be convincing, serves me every day, like to this day. So and definitely like in my work here at the Devils, but also as a coach, like if you can't communicate, you're never going to be able to inspire your players. You're not even going to be able to explain a drill effectively. That was one of the learning experiences that I had to go through. Like, I was talking and talking and talking on the ice, and in New Jersey, it's like $7 a minute or $10 a minute of ice time.
Yeah, time is money, literally.
It's that time talking. Like, I need them skating. So how do you explain a drill? How do you break it down? How do you talk to your players in a quick, efficient, effective manner? To get them to understand what you're trying to do. And so it served me really well through everything, on and off the ice.
Well, it suffice to say that you probably didn't win too many arguments with Governor Whitman as a teenager in your house. Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Let's go back.
Don't win any arguments with her.
Yeah. So you talk about communicating drills effectively. Any advice or strategies with that?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways to do it. Like, we talk a lot at USA Hockey about breaking it down into describing the drill and then demonstrating and doing it separately. So one of the things I used to do, and I have sort of a softer voice on the ice. I can't actually get my voice out there really well. So I feel like I'm screaming, but my players are like, we don't hear you. I'm like, oh my God. But so explaining when they're paying attention is really important, and then demonstrating separately, because I would also explain while I was demonstrating and skating away from them, so no one could hear anything that I was saying. And I think it's really effective if you break those two things apart, and then you can't overwhelm them. They don't need to know the reason for everything. You can tell them, like, okay, this is this drill, this is why we're doing this. Tell them one thing and explain in 3 short, easy instructions what to do, and then go have them do it. And you can demonstrate it then in silence afterward. I think that's the best way to do it. And I was explaining and skating and being complicated. It was bad.
Would it be fair to say that, A, less is more, and B, I think what's really interesting, and I mean, we hear a lot of feedback about this, but the fact that you distinguish between explaining it and then demonstrating and keeping those two separate actions.
It's hard to do.
Well, because you go back to the time thing, right? I think intuitively, as you said that, I'm like, well, that takes more time. But I again, not being in your shoes, but my instinct is like, over the course of an hour, you probably save time because the uptick is more efficient.
I also, throughout the season, like, I will take 5 or 6 drills that I'll use throughout the season, and I'll start them in the beginning of the season very simply. And then I'll add to them throughout the season. I also let the girls name them. So that way I just have to say the name by the end of this. And they name them like ridiculous things, which they also love. Which is fun. So they'll know what it is. And then I'll add to it throughout the season to make it more complex, or to ask them to do different things, to incentivize them to do different things throughout the season. So you can sort of build on, if you look at the whole season. I also used to just look at practices like this. Right. And I would look at Monday based on the game on Saturday. And then we do one thing Monday, and I expect them to do that thing on the next Saturday, which is crazy. Like, they don't have the recall. Like, you have to do that day and day and day for like 6 weeks or something for them to learn it. So, like, building those pieces into all your drills. And it does take more time as a coach to plan that way. It definitely does. Like, it takes more time. But at the end of the day, you get more out of your players. So,
yeah, it's funny. I would say that's probably been, I coach, I kind of went in the opposite direction. I started coaching junior and college hockey, and then now I coach my little guy. And I would say that was the biggest transition, was just ignoring the games and just having a plan and saying, like, the games are just, they're cherries on top. Like, we just have to stick with almost like a curriculum, and stick with it regardless.
Right. And I just use them as am I doing it right? Right? Like, do I see what I want to see in my players in the games? And that means that I'm doing it right in practice. Like, and if I don't, what am I not doing in practice? Yeah. Like, so I used to be, what are my players not doing? And now is much more like, as the coaches, what are we
That's not doing? You know what? I think that is such a great framework for all coaches that is so easily missed. Another thing I would just take from this conversation, Kate, is it sounds like you give your players a lot of autonomy when it comes to setting goals, to naming drills, and Going back to that piece about, the retention and in your case, drawing kids in the game for the first time as teenagers, how much do you think that plays into it, that in a world where they're probably, told what to do by their teachers, they probably in their minds, they go home and mom and dad tell them what to do, and then they come to the rink and it's like, hey, you're a part of creating this thing that we're all joined together in?
I mean, I would like to say that it's a lot. They like any teenage girls, like they have so much going on and so much pulling their attention in different places, and things at home, or they're working, they have a job, they have other sports, like it's really hard. And so you want to create that fun environment and that feeling of a family, right? Like, so that's what keeps you in the game, right? Is your teammates, maybe your coach, but mostly your teammates, and that feeling of belonging and that someone else has your back. And I think that's important for any kid in any part of the country. And it's something that that's what I focus on. Right. So yeah, the wins and losses, we won one game this year. So that's what it is. But we had a blast doing it. And sometimes it's hard to go to the rink and it's dark and you're tired and you don't want to go. And then I get on the ice and all of a sudden it's been an hour and I'm like, what happened? We're done. So, I hope that I can give that same experience to the girls.
You mentioned that you were involved with the Metropolitan Riveters.
Yeah.
Which, by the way.
Wait, hold on. Sorry.
Oh my, okay. All right. There we go. So I have to say, one of the best all-time logos, not in hockey, in sport. Do you know the origin of that? And also, what's a riveter?
I mean, World War II. But
is that what it is? Okay, yeah, all right.
Yeah, so riveters were women who were creating, who were working in manufacturing for men during World War II. Yeah.
Oh my God. I feel ignorant for not knowing that, but that is what a cool name and branding. I hope it lives. With all the, I don't know if it ever happens, but obviously the PWHL is expanding. It would be an absolute shame for that name and brand to fall off the deck.
Yeah. It's such a cool brand. It just it has so many great connotations around women working and taking over roles that men typically had. And it's a great, yeah.
So when you go through the experience that you did in building that team, and again, you mentioned you started on the coaching staff, you became the general manager, you're selecting players, etc. It seems like we're just, in so many ways, it feels like we're sort of at the top of the pyramid with female hockey. But then we forget that, we're very much in its infancy. And I would almost compare female hockey, if it was a startup, it's almost like it's been years of just trying to find product market fit. And now they've found it. And now it's like, you can just see into the future. And it's like, it's just going to go up and to the right. Like, this is not a flash in the pan. It's growing. But it's easy to lose sight that, some of the other professional leagues, didn't work out. If they didn't exist in the first place, we're probably not where we're at today. Like, it took those trials and errers. It took.
Weren't there 5 NHL leagues too at some point years ago? Yeah. So I think it's totally. It's a startup, and you wouldn't have had what it is today without the NWHL and Danny Ryland, and say what you want about that league. It was a startup. We were piecing together things and putting together whatever we could. I remember so I became GM. We ended up leaving this building, so leaving the Prudential Center, which was really hard. I had to find another rink. We had to draft players. Nobody had any money. It was just. How
did you generate revenue? How did you pay the bills in that league?
It was a lot. We relied a lot on the league to help. So it was supposed to be sponsorships and ticket sales. When we were in this building, they were selling 750, 800 tickets a game. So it was enough to cover some costs. But when we moved, we're doing 2 or 3, 400 people a game, which is not enough. And so, you have to make decisions as a GM of what you can and can't do, and some of it's really hard, and you can't tell the players, and
you're flying, and like there's real expenses here.
Yeah, there was there was one time where our flight got canceled and we ended up in a hotel, but the league card that I had didn't work. So I had to use my own. I had to call my husband and be like, can you raise the limit on our credit card?
Oh my God. Wow.
So it's like, I think there's probably stories like that from the NHL when it was starting out. And it is what it is, but it was an amazing experience. And those women, I mean, they would go from full-time jobs to coming to practice to traveling to running home to kids and full-time jobs. Like they were really the pioneers and were amazing it was just amazing to be a part of it, all of it. And so my first game as a GM, we'd gone through, 6 months of drafting and getting them on the ice and getting people here. I had players who lived with me, players who lived with my mother, players who lived with my best friend. Like, we were billeting players as, I mean, it was total chaos. And we played our first game and they had barely gotten the uniforms in time and was barely on the ice, right? It was such a disaster, but they were on the ice. And I remember standing up in the back of the rink, and I'm not much of a crier, but like, I couldn't hold it. I was like bawling, crying. And I had to go hide in a closet somewhere. I was like, this is embarrassing. I cannot be the GM crying at this thing.
Oh my God.
I was like so much just to get them on the ice.
Yeah.
And then seeing it was so cool because like the product that you put out there was so great. And these women are such amazing athletes and people. And so it's so, I know there's a lot of friction back and forth when the league's changed over, but like just seeing the growth is so amazing. And what they've been able to do this year, especially in Canada, I mean, selling out arenas has just been so cool to watch. And here we have the Sirens who play here. And they've done an amazing job.
Where do they play in the tri-state area?
They play here.
They play Prudential.
Yeah. So last year they played at UBS and then they moved over to Prudential. And so like we really need to like build up our grassroots support of them now that they're back in this building, which I think is where they belong. But that's just me. But they're wonderful. And just watching now what they're doing is, I mean, they have social media people and ticketing people, and they have got all the actual like real team people who are working so hard, and their players are amazing. So it's just great to see the growth of the league, and I hope it continues on.
Well, I think it is, and it's interesting. So we just received an expansion franchise here in Vancouver. There's going to be a week later, right? in Seattle, which and it'll be just a great rivalry. But I've been amazed at how many people just in my professional network, when the team got announced in Vancouver, reached out to me and said, do you like, and they've got like real deal jobs and careers. And they're like, there is so much enthusiasm. They're like, do you know anybody of the team in Vancouver? Like, I want to get in on this. And this is without knowing the salary expectations. Like, they just want to be a part of it. And I think that is so positive. The other thing that I'll note that I think is so unique right now about the PWHL and just female hockey in general is that my instinct was that when this league started and they had players were making, they were earning a living from playing. And I mean, even since the inception of the league, there's been, I think, some really positive steps forward. In my mind, I'm like, there's going to be a lot of bitter former players that say like, I never got paid or I missed out, and they're going to be sour about it. It's been completely opposite.
Yeah, totally
how much they've embraced the fact that, they've kind of paved the way, but now these younger players get to realize this and do something that they didn't get an opportunity to do. And I think that just speaks volumes where this is decades in the making. I
mean, yeah, I think they all wish that they had that. I wish I had it. Yeah, I wish that was an option when I was growing up. I would have totally tried to play in this league. I don't know if I was good enough, but I would have really tried. Like, I think, talking to our former players, I see them a lot. They're all around here. And they're just so excited about the growth of the league and, want to be a part of it in whatever way they can to be supportive. They buy tickets. We're all season ticket holders. We see each other at the games here. It's just, I hope that we can grow it to the point where we're filling this arena the way they are in Canada.
I think we'll get there. I think we'll get there. And I think it helps, I really believe this too, that, a crowd attracts a crowd.
Yeah.
And that's where the power of social media comes in, that these images get shared and people see how much fun it is. And
it's a very different vibe than a Devils game. Yeah.
Is it really?
Yeah. It's a different vibe. Different. Yeah. It's a lot of fun. I've there's a lot of, it's very joyful. Not that the Devils aren't joyful.
Well, and I speak for the rest of hockey. Okay, like my impressions of a Devils game is Putty on Seinfeld. Like that's
it's intense. Right?
Yeah, it's intense.
Intense. And that's great. And I love those too. But there's just some kind of like joy and fun in the PW games that I love. And I take my boys to it. My boys have been so lucky because they've grown up with professional women living in our house. So they don't think it's weird at all. Like they don't think anything of it. They think it's completely normal. Like one of the Russians we had several Russians who lived in our house. One taught my son how to take face-offs and was sitting in the backyard doing that. She, oh my gosh, it was crazy. We live in the middle of Morristown, like, we back up onto some woods, but nothing crazy. But a fox came up and it unfortunately was rabid and it went after one of my dogs. And you probably can't put this on the podcast. She just took her stick and just took care of the fox.
Took a major.
And then turned around and dropped the puck. Everybody's like, oh!
That's amazing. Oh
yeah,
my
so
God.
I feel like stuff like that will stick in their minds forever.
Oh my God. I bet your boys never crossed her path again though, in a negative way after seeing that.
Know, she's scary. Yeah.
Yeah. No kidding. No kidding. So it was really cool. And I think, every professional sports organization endeavors, at least on a public facing front, to show that they give back. And I think that there's different degrees of that. You guys are doing some amazing work. It was really fun to sort of dig into some of the campaigns. You guys had a hell of a year I was astonished by how much money you raised. But the first question I have to ask you is, can you share the story behind the Dougie D admin t-shirts?
Yeah. Yes.
And where can I get one?
I can send you one. I have one. So Dougie
Hamilton, I'm assuming.
Yes, Dougie Hamilton. Yeah. In the beginning of the year, our marketing team did a social media video clip to our fans with Douglas D. Admin. And he was a professor and he was marking things on a map and it kind of went viral. It's very funny. If you look it up, you'll see it. He has like a fake mustache that falls off halfway, but he's still talking. He's amazing. It was really funny. And so every year we do a special shirt for DYF that we sell and auction off during our foundation night, which is in December. And so this year it was all based around Dougie D. Admin. But the video is very funny. And it happened at the beginning of the year and the fans kind of went crazy for it. He's got a dry sense of humor and it's great. But our involvement with our players is something that, and I haven't worked in professional sports before this role. I'm going to go into my 5th season with the Devils now. But from what I can see, it's not the same in every league, the access to players. And I feel particularly grateful here at the Devils because our ownership group, which is Harris Blitzer Sports Entertainment, across all their sports properties, of which they have many, our 2 owners, Josh Harris and David Blitzer, focus so much on the impact that our arenas and our sports teams are having in our communities and our states. And they truly care deeply about it. And that trickles down, right? So Allison Blitzer is the chair of the Devils Youth Foundation, and they have 5 kids, and she cares deeply about youth. She is a super active, involved chair and super smart, which is great for me, really helpful. She's awesome. And everybody here knows that our ownership cares about community and they care about the foundation. They care about what we're doing. And so that is really helpful for me. And that trickles down to the players. Every year at the beginning of the season, Allison and I address the whole team. We talk about what the foundation is. We talk about how people could be involved if they wanted to be, what are any expectations. Our players come to us and say hey, we really care about this. We do a ton of meet and greets with our nonprofit partners. And so, I see them all the time, so I forget, but when Jack Hughes walks in a room and says hi to a kid, like that's kind of life changing for them. And you can see kids like, oh my gosh, it's Dougie Hamilton, it's Jack, it's Luke, it's Marky. Like, it makes a huge difference, and it's not a ton of time for them. So we try to build that into their schedule. I mean, they're so busy, they travel all the time. And I have to say our hockey operations team has been really amazing. Like, they lean in, they let us do so many cool things with our players. Beyond meet and greets, like we got to travel with the team. We take, a family on a team trip. It's pretty amazing stuff that we get to do throughout the year. So I'm really thankful for the support that we have internally. And that goes to the fundraising as well. So every year we have a major event. It's called Devil Sweep the Deck. It's curling and cards on the big ice. It is so much fun.
Okay. I want to ask you guys have a great video from this last year's event, and you guys raised $2
million.
Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah,
it's huge.
But the thing that stands out in that video is the players are having the most fun. Now, you mentioned Harold and Blitzer Sports Entertainment. We were really fortunate in COVID. Scott O'Neill came on the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And he was awesome. And, and echoed a lot of this.
Golf, huh? That's going to be intense.
Oh my God. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. But he seems like kind of that's just searching for he's trying to knock over the fence.
Yeah.
But he echoed a lot of the same sentiments of ownership. But I had this moment when I was watching this video, and granted there was the 90s Devils, and there was maybe a culture around that, and
different.
That was different, right? And then there was maybe, let's call it, some lean years. I would be so curious to know that under the new ownership, how much of the fan engagement. Prudential Center seems like it's rocking. The team's playing better, and people might point to, well, it's a younger team, early draft picks, etc. But I just wonder, like, I watched that video of the players having so much fun, and I wonder how much of that correlates into the team culture, the play on the ice, because they feel like they're genuinely a part of something bigger than themselves and really making a difference. Like the work that you guys are doing and how that money is being allocated in the community is pretty amazing.
So, I mean, I think going back to what we were saying about the high school level, it's creating that culture, right? And that culture of a family. And that's what we talk about all the time. It's what the team talks about, like creating that family feel. So that event, players are contracted to do a couple of events a year. They're only supposed to be there for 2 hours. They don't have to be there any longer. They all stay. They have so much fun. They are so nice to everyone who comes up to them and asks for autographs and pictures. And you can, like you said, I mean, you can see they're having fun. So they do a couple different things throughout the night. If they're 21, they bartend. They curl with sponsors and the general public as well. And then they'll also do some card playing as well. So it's really fun because it's a different kind of event. It's not like a sit down gala, which, has its place and time, but we just wanted to create something that was engaging and fun and that people wanted to be at. And so it's become a thing where people really look forward to going. And we tweak little things each year, but the main parts of the curling and the cards are going to stay because people have so much fun. And by the way, curling is really hard. I was like, oh, I got this, and went out, and you feel like you're on the wrong.
You weren't in heels though, were you? That makes it hard.
Not in heels.
Okay, good.
No, but I definitely fell over. It was, it's harder than it looks, but it's a great event, and so that is primarily a corporate sponsored event, and so that is where I lean into the business side of things here. So our premium team, our partnership team, our ticketing team, like they all lean in for that event, and they do sell a ton of packages and tickets that way.
Amazing. So it's the off season. Sadly, it is the off season for the New Jersey Devils. Yes. So most of the folks we talk to on this show at this time of year, they kind of know, like, over the next several months, they've got a sense of how they might improve the power play for next year or shuffle the lines, etc. You mentioned off the top that you're getting ready for planning for next year. Yeah. What are some areas where you say, hey, here's how we can build on what we've already established in your tenure there?
So it's interesting. So we actually work on a calendar year. So all of our planning has been done for this whole year, but our business side works on a fiscal year. So they're all in business planning right now. So what I bring is like the second half of what we see as our year into it. So everything that we're going to do between now and December, basically. And we look to grow. We're always looking at who are our nonprofit partners? Where are we showing up in New Jersey? We have 4 pillars that we focus on. So equitable access to arts and arts education, food and nutrition security. It's been a big one for us the last couple of years. Creating safe spaces, and that's both mental and physical health and wellness. So, we do a lot with the Boys and Girls Club. It's an after-school program, particularly the one that we support around mental health and community mental health. So it's not just the kids, but it's their parents and anyone else who feels like they need to come in to talk to someone. So that has been a big push, especially since COVID, because we've seen so many like scary numbers since COVID with online and like mental health. And then our last piece is getting kids active and moving. And we're purposely not focused on just hockey on ice or ball hockey off ice. We want to get kids who maybe even don't want to be in an organized sport, but just getting moving, getting out there. And that also ties really well into our food and nutrition security piece. We've done a ton of work here in Newark around that, creating community refrigerators where people are able to go and access food that they want, that they can choose on their own time. So we work with a bunch of different organizations around that. But we're always looking at, okay, what are we doing? Where are we showing up? And what does the community need? So I spend a lot of time outside of this office talking and learning what people need, because I don't think it's fair of me to go out and tell someone here in Newark like what I think they need, right? Like that's not gonna help, right? So we are always trying to listen and learn from the communities around us. So I would say about 70% of our grant funds stay in Newark, and they always will. It's where we live, work, and play. But we do have a couple of statewide scholarships, one around music called Record High, one around that we just started. It's actually our second year with our alumni. And so every year Marty Brodeur has a golf outing, and the proceeds from that come to our foundation and then become this scholarship fund. So it's really great. We did 10 $5,000 scholarships this year to high school, New Jersey high school students all across the state. And it's seniors, and it's to go on to any kind of college. It doesn't have to be a 4-year. It can be a 2-year. It can be a trade, anything like that. And then we did another 5 $1,000 ones. And so we'll have an award ceremony this spring. But so it's things like that. It's not just our current players, our alumni around all the time. They're getting actively engaged. They get to make choices around this. It's a lot of fun. So
I love that the reach extends well beyond the hockey community and can be felt by everyone. Kate, it's pretty clear just based on this conversation that the role service has played in your life, and just learning a bit about your mom. And I've got a few questions, but I thought I'd start with this. Like, what were conversations like at the dinner table growing up?
There was a lot of table pounding.
So that was part of the political science, getting your point across.
A lot of table pounding. Yeah. My parents both always talked about the importance of giving back, and the way my mom did it was through politics. And she did a lot of incredible work around the environment, and lots of, she saved 1 million acres in New Jersey during her time as governor, and has continued that work when she went to the EPA and now beyond. So the environment is something that's really important to her. It's, she lives on the farm she grew up on.
Is that where you grew up?
Halfway. We moved there when I was 15.
Okay.
So it's still a working farm. It's a cattle farm right now. It's 100 acres in New Jersey.
I would never associate New Jersey with cattle farming.
It is. Yep. And so like the work that I do here around that food and nutrition space is also super interesting because of the way I grew up. We actually support a lot of urban farmers. So looking at Newark and the spaces here where people are farming, and what does that look like compared to, a little bit further out west where our farm is, and then further and further where, you have the huge farms. So it's definitely interesting that way to look at it. But it's certainly something that giving back has always been sort of part of the conversation in our family. And it's something we try to talk about. Craig, my husband, and I, and our boys try to talk about as well. And that's another reason I love the boys being here and seeing what I do, because they have a greater appreciation for the things that they have and the things that they've been given.
When your mom, Christine, entered politics, I mean, just turn on the TV, it's pretty clear that there's the majority of politicians, that this is a male-dominated arena. That's changing, but I imagine if we go back 30 years, that it was even more so.
I mean, she's still the only female who's ever been governor of New Jersey.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So, we go back to those KPIs for your foundation, the work that you're doing with your high school team, and the data that comes out about female executives and the role that sport has played in their development is pretty astonishing. And it's really clear that this is bigger than just sport, that this vibrates, if sports is done right, it vibrates through the lives in both boys and girls, but it's particularly powerful, I think, in women. And, when you guys are getting together now and you talk about the work that you're doing, I mean, do you ever pause and maybe imagine like you're looking into a crystal ball and 20 years from now that, this isn't, you're planting seeds, so to speak, I think, in terms of what these women or young girls are going to go on and do in the future? So
now that I was at Pingree 4 years ago, coached for 8 years. So that first year of girls, they're out in working, like they're professionals now. And so they often come back to me and ask questions, and I try, to be a mentor when I'm needed. But, it's pretty amazing to watch and see the difference that sports can make in all kids, but for me, particularly in girls and women. And just that teaching that resilience, that ability to fail, that ability to move on from a mistake, the ability to stand up for yourself. I think it's incredibly important. And like you said, it was 94% of C-suite women played sports. So it's so important beyond just what happens on the field or on the ice. Just teaching kids to believe in themselves, I think, is something that, a lot of kids don't have right now. And everything about social media and our culture is eroding that. And, if I can play a very small part in giving a kid the confidence that she needs to go to college, to make a hard choice, that to me is everything. So just, I think as coaches, at the end of the day, we are building better people, right? We're building better humans, people who can go out into the world and try and make it a better place. And I think that's really important. And sometimes you lose sight of that, and I think everybody does. But at the end of the day, getting back to the fact that like these kids are going to be better because I got to spend this hour of ice time with them, right? Like that's the most important thing.
Love that. Last one. Any recommendations in terms of resources that have perhaps helped you as a coach, or just in your professional life, be it a book, a mentor, podcast, anything that you'd recommend?
Well, I do like your site.
Oh, appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. I think for me, definitely the USA Hockey Aspect piece of it. Going through that coaching development training and then really learning that material has been super helpful. And it definitely changed the course of my coaching career, like for sure.
Amazing. Well, okay, I'll tell you what, so thank you so much for spending time for us today. And we are so excited. And again, I'm fortunate. I've had a bit of a preview of your talk at TCS Live this year. And it's exciting to meet you in person as well. And best of luck with everything you're doing down there in New Jersey and the impact.
Thanks for having me on.